Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Yashmakan. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So in this particular video, we'll be making a food ordering application. So you must have used apps like Zomato, Swiggy, Uber, where the user can eventually track the agent, the driver's location in real time. So that's what we are planning to make that application in this today's video. So we are planning to make the application for both Android and iOS. I'm going to talk about the project requirements in depth in the further part of the video. So we'll talk about what and all features we'll include, what technical stack we'll be using for the front end, for the back end, where we'll host our APIs and web sockets. And by the end of this video, we'll have our demo ready for both Android and iOS, where the agent and user can communicate, and the ordering food and then tracking of the food, all of that we will do. So if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. I usually make content regarding software development and regarding Flutter, Python, all of that. So with that all being said, let's get right on with the video. Alright then. So first let's try to understand the project requirements and what we'll be including inside our application. So I've already laid down a list for the project requirements, the features that I will be including inside the application. The first one is the available client screen. So this is for the agent specific screen. So the agent will be able to see all of the orders that are inside the pipeline that the agent can accept and then move it to the order tracking screen. Next, we have this order tracking screen that is for both the user and the agent. So the delivery guy will be able to easily see and update the status of the food, and the user will be able to see the updated status by the agent in real time, and also can track the live tracking location of the agent as well. By the end, if the agent wants to make the status as delivered, we will also have to include a OTP verification mechanism, so that the agent has to enter that OTP given by the user to basically verify that the order has been delivered or not. Pretty simple, pretty easy. So these are the features that we'll be incorporating inside the application. Now, to better understand it, let's also see the screens of inside Figma. So I have basically created the Figma screens as well that we can follow. So here you can see that we have the order tracking for the user and the order tracking for the agent in the right. In the user, you can see that we have the basic agent details, and we can basically call him. We can see the real-time update status, the product details, as well as the real-time info, the live tracking info of the agent. Now inside the agent application, we can see the live tracking agent direction. So the agent can eventually see the directions of the destination. They can basically call the user as well. They will be also able to see the status, as well as they can update the status by changing it to order picked up, and they can at last make it as order delivered. So that's all the screens for the order tracking screen. Then we have this verification, OTP verification flow. So whenever the agent wants to make the order as delivered, he has to go through with the OTP verification flow that we have talked about in the third point. Cool. And then we'll have our first screen as well that is not here inside the Figma, and that will include the clients that are available, that the orders that are available that the agent can take. Awesome. So these are the screens that we'll be making. Now I have also laid down each one by one step that we can follow to make things much more easier. So here you can see that we have this food delivery app for the order tracking, and first step is to make the Flutter project. So if you see the title, the thumbnail, you must have already noticed that for the front end, we'll be using Flutter to make our cross-platform application for both Android and iOS. So here the Flutter version that I will be using is 3.16.8. So if you want, you can use the same version as well. No issues on that. And after installing, what I have just done is I have created this new Flutter project, this food tracking application inside the Android Studio. And here I only have the main.dart file, and right here you can see that we have all of the basic code inside the main.dart. And basically on the right, you can see that my iOS simulator is open that I can just use. So let's quickly run this application to test it out. Alright, so you can see that the application on the right, the basic Flutter app is installed and it's working perfectly fine. Now what we have to do is we have to add few of the packages here first. So let's go back to our step 2, and here we can see that we are going to add few of these packages. Let me copy these and then we can talk about more in detail why we are adding these packages. So inside the pubspec YAML, below inside the dependencies, we are going to add these packages. Cool. Now, why we are adding these packages? Let's talk about that. Let me just remove this comments. All right. Now, first we will be using the location package, and that is basically used to get the current location of the device. So let's go in detail and go to the pubdev as well. So I'm gonna go here and pubdev. So this is the location plugin that we'll be using. It is available for both Android and iOS, and it will be used to get the current location. So we have to do some setup for the Android as well as iOS. So that we will look into the step 3rd. But let's talk about a few of the other packages that we have added. Second one is the Google Maps Flutter. So that is the package for the Google Maps Flutter, and that will eventually help us to integrate the Google Maps inside our app so that we can pass the Google Maps API key and then get the maps integrated inside our application so that we can showcase the real-time location of the agent. And next we'll be using the Flutter polyline points. This is a really interesting package and really helpful package as well. So here you can see that this particular package is used to draw polygon lines between specific two locations. So it's quite easy. Basically, we are making this polyline points object, and we are simply calling this method get route between coordinates, and we'll pass our API key, our origin latitude, origin longitude, destination latitude, and destination longitude. And that's gonna give us the result. Now, based on this result, we can actually pass these polylines inside our Google Maps Flutter so that we can see the line. Makes sense. So these are the packages that I'll be using in this particular video that we have just added. Let's hit pub get once so that these packages is installed inside our project. There we go. It is added. Now our step 2 is done. Let me close this website and let's go back to the step 3rd, that is our iOS setup. So these packages don't work out of the box. We have to set up for different operating system. So for Android and iOS, both we have to do separate setup for that. So inside the iOS, let's first go to the info.plist file and add our location permission group. So I'm just going to copy that, and inside the iOS, inside runner, you can see that we have this info.plist file. Just click on that. And here inside the bottom, before this dict closing tag, you can simply paste this permission group. Let me just fix this indentation and it will be just fine. Next, inside the app delegate.swift file, we are going to just copy and paste this particular code. So here only inside iOS runner, we have this our app delegate.swift file. So I'm just gonna paste up this code, and here you can see that it is asking for the Google Maps API key. So here we need to enter the API key that we will pass as well in the further steps. Next, so our iOS setup is done. Basically what we have done is we have added the location permission as well as the Google Maps API key we have added inside our app delegate file. Inside the Android setup, first we have to do is the compile SDK version as 34 inside the Android app build.gradle file. So let's do that. So here inside the Android app build.gradle, we have to change our compile SDK version. So here you can see compile SDK version. We have to update that to the 34.
And also the minimum SDK version that we have in the same file, we have to update as 20. Let's update it to 20. And then we have to head over to our Android manifest XML file and add the location permissions first. So inside our Android app src main and Android manifest, here we have to add above the application tag, you can add these permissions. So let me just remove this. Yeah, cool. So we have added our permission for accessing the location inside the Android, and inside the build.gradle, we have upgraded our minimum SDK version as well as our compile SDK version. The versions that I have updated here because the packages that we have added supports the APIs internally, the native APIs above these versions. Cool. So after that, inside the manifest file only, we have to add this metadata inside our application tag. So here we have our application tag. If you go in the bottom, you will be able to see that this is a metadata tag. Below that, you can add our metadata for the Google Maps API key. And here we have to insert the API key. Cool. And yeah, that's it for the Android setup as well. Next, we'll move over to the GCP setup. So now, for now, in a summary, what we have done is we have created our package and we've added all of the requirements, the setup for the Android and iOS. Now, why we have to set up the GCP is because we have to enable the Google Maps SDK and get our API key. So you can see that inside the Android setup, it also requires the API key. And if you go to our iOS setup as well, inside the iOS runner, and inside you can see the app delegate Swift file. You can see that here also inside iOS, we have to provide the Google Maps API key. So now to get the API key for both iOS and Android, we have to get our GCP project setup and the Google Maps SDK project setup. Cool. So let's do that. So now, first what you have to do is head over to the Google Cloud Console, and here you can make a new project. So here, new project you can create from the top left and just rename this project as anything. So I am just gonna rename it as food delivery app. So I'm gonna create the project right here, and there we go. I can click on this select project button and it's gonna activate that project for me right here. Now what I can do is I have to go to the search bar and enable our Google Maps SDK. So search for the Maps SDK, and you'll be able to see the Maps SDK for Android and iOS. We have to enable them both. So first let's head over to the Android, and here inside the Maps SDK for Android, just click enable. Now after clicking on enable, it's going to navigate you to this account information screen, and basically the Google Maps API requires the payment information, and in return you will get the 200 monthly credit at no charge. So basically then we can test the API. So just click on agree and continue, and here you can click on the discount, and basically here you can enter your payment method, the card details. All right, so let's move over to the next step once the payment details are entered. Cool. So once the payment details are entered, then the Google Maps SDK for Android will be activated. You can see that the API enabled, and then you can click on this manage button as well. But first what we will do is head over to the Maps SDK and enable the Maps SDK for iOS as well. I've done that already. So here you can see the Map SDK for iOS. Just click on enable, and then we can click on this manage. Now once both the Android and iOS SDK is enabled, then head over to the navigation menu and click to the API services and credentials. We have to get our API keys now. So now we are going to create our API key. It's going to make the API key for us. So here we go. We have our API key right here. Let me just copy that and I can just paste that API key right here inside our Android as well as our iOS setup. Make sense? Cool. Now this is done. Now what else we have to do is I can close this and I can click on the three dots right here of the API key and click on the edit API key. Now we have to add restriction API to this. So basically what we will do is we will restrict this API key. So restrict key, and we will search for our map SDK right here. So map SDK, there we go, maps SDK for Android and iOS. These both we will enable for this particular API key, and I'm gonna rename this as the food delivery API key. Cool. And click on save. Now as you can see, this is saved right here with the two APIs restriction. Perfect. Now our GCP setup is done as well, and we have successfully added both our API keys inside the Android and iOS project. Next in the step is so we have already covered the 5th step and the 6th step, adding the API key. So basically inside the Android manifest and the app delegate file. Now let's head over to the design the UI screens. So first we have to make some screens. So let's go to the main.dart now and start with the coding. So here inside the lib, I'm gonna create a directory first for the screens, and inside here we are gonna create few of the folders. So here let's just create directly the files. So first we will have our agent status screen. So I'm gonna create that. New Dart file, agent status screen. Yep. Click enter. Next we will have our order tracking screen. So I'm just gonna right click and create the order tracking screen, and then I'm gonna create our, that's it. So OTP generation flow we have to add, and at last agent will be navigated to the status screen, back to the status screen. Cool. So these were the two screens that we will add. Let's create another folder for our utils. Nothing much will be added here, just I'm gonna add a constants.dart file, and let's just create a components folder as well. So all of the global shared components we will add inside the components. Cool. And now inside the main.dart, let's remove all of our boilerplate code first. Let's change the title to food delivery app, and let me remove this my home page stateful widget, and we're gonna directly call here our. Now it will depend on if the app is opened by the agent or the user, right? So what we can do is I can create two endpoints or two starting points for agent and user. So instead of so let's do that. So here I'm gonna create this one as a agent.dart, and this will take that to the agent status screen, and same we will do for the user.dart. This is the user.dart, and we have our main method right here, and that will take the user to the order tracking screen directly. Alright, cool. So these are both the screens, the starting points for the main.dart. Now what I will do is I'm going to add these configurations inside the Android Studio, so it will be easier for us to run it. So inside the top, you can see that we have our agent.dart. Just click on the edit configurations, and we have already set up the agent.dart right here. We're gonna add the user.dart as well. So click on the plus icon on the top left, click on Flutter, and we'll create our user.dart entry point as well. Then we're gonna select our user.dart file from here and click on OK and hit apply. So now we can easily switch and run apps from the user or agent perspective. Cool. I'm gonna comment the test.dart file because that's not we are covering in this video. Then inside our agent and user files, we have our errors. So let's quickly make our stateful widgets as well. Cool. So all the errors are gone and a basic structure of the project is already made. Now let's focus on our Figma design for the agent status screen. Now I have not made the design for the agent status screen. So basically the agent status screen, let's cover that after making our order tracking screen. So basically inside the order tracking screen, we will have our map in the background, and on the top we will have our section for the user details as well as the order tracking details. So that's what we're gonna make right now. So let's just run it from the user's perspective. Now the order tracking screen, what it's gonna take is, so first we have to determine if the order tracking screen is opened by the user or the agent. So basically what we can do is agent will be getting the order as, so we have to create a model first. So let's create inside the utils, let's create our models folder, and inside let's create our order model. So let's create our class order and cool. So now this order model will be passed to our order tracking screen. The final order model, our order will be taken from this particular screen, and I'm gonna import it as the order. Now the user is getting an error that we have to pass the order details as well. So what I'm going to do is inside the constants, I'm going to create some dummy order details right here. We are not going to focus in this particular video about fetching the product, about authentication, adding user details, nothing like that. We are just going to focus on the delivery portions. So that is why the order details will be constant. So here what I'm going to do is, let's create our constant order is equals to order model. Cool. And what else? Let's create our product right here. So final product is equals to the product model, and it's gonna pass to the product. So this will be our order, And let's also create another user field for our agent. So right here we will have our agent as well, and let it be nullable by default. So let's go to the order model, and where we have our user model, let's create our agent, and I'm gonna pass that agent as well right over here. Cool. So what we have done is we have added a new field for the agent as well, and inside the constants now we will have this order as the agent defined as null by default. And yeah, that's it. Now we can do is the name, amount of the product details we can enter. Let me just copy paste these dummy details for now, because we are not focusing on getting the product right now. So now our inside the user model, it's asking for the order tracking screen, and the order is gonna ask, so let me just pass our order. Let me import our constants, and the order is getting passed. So now as soon as the user will open the app, the order will be assigned, and so the order will go to the order tracking screen. And inside the init state, so inside the init state we have to check if order assigned to delivery agent, check if the process of assigning order to delivery agent is initiated or not. So inside the init state we will check if the assigning order to delivery agent, this process, if it is assigned or if it is initiated or not. If it is not initiated in the init state, we will initiate it. Otherwise we will just track the location, we will fetch the updated location. So that's the logic that we have to do. We have to do it in the further steps. But first, now let's focus on our main screens, the scaffold screen. Right now, if I hot restart, we have our entry point inside the user.dart. Okay, so it's gonna launch the app. Let's wait for that. And there we go. So our screen is launched, and our scaffold is showing right here as an empty screen. Now what we have to do is we have to make this particular screen for the user. So let's focus on the Google map first inside the background that we can see. So all right, inside the scaffold I'm going to add our body, and inside the body we will add stack children. And first let's add the layer of the Google map in the background. Before that, let's import the packages here. So I'm going to import the Google Maps Flutter, the location package, and our Flutter polyline points package for adding the real-time tracking for the points. So in the bottom here we are going to add the Google map widget, and it's going to take a initial camera position. So for that, first let's go on the top and assign our current location. There we go. So our current location we have to assign, and we also have to add the logic for get current location inside the init state. And if the current location is not equals to null, only then we will show our Google map. So if current location not equals to null, only then we will show our Google Maps. Cool. So now what we can do is remove this initial camera position. Inside the camera position we can add a target and the zoom value. The target will take the lat long, and first let's pass our current location dot latitude and the longitude. All right, let me put this. Nice. So our initial camera position for the Google Maps is added. Also, let's add our zoom here. So inside the initial camera position, we can add a zoom for 13.5 will work. So 13.5. All right. So our camera position for the Google Maps is added. For now, let's run the app and try. So I'm gonna hot restart. And the reason we are not able to see anything right now, because the current location is null. So our Google Map is not showing. So we have to add the logic for getting the current location. Let's work on that. So let's include our state management as well here. So I'm going to go inside my pubspec YAML, and here let's include the block and the Flutter block package. Let's also import the get it for our dependency injection. Nice. So our packages are added. Now what I can do is let's add we have our screens right over here. Let's add a folder for blocks. And right over here, I'm going to create a directory for our order tracking. And this is gonna take we'll create our events, our states, it's gonna take states, and it will take our bloc.dart file as well. Cool. So now for the events, let's create an abstract class for order tracking event. And let's create our class for fetch current location. And this will extend our order tracking event. All right. It's better to make the class abstract class as seed class. So even we can use it inside the switch case and comparing. So inside the more latest version of the Dart code, you can even use the sealed class, which will be better. So we added our first event for the fetch current location, and let's add our states as well. So I'm gonna go over to the state, the order tracking state, and this is gonna be order tracking state. And right over here, our state will be fetching. Okay, so order tracking initial state. So this will be our initial state of the block. Then we will have our order tracking current location fetching state, and then we will have a current location fetched state. Cool. So these will be the event and the state. Now let's add our block. So class, and it will be order tracking block, and this is gonna extend the block. Let's import it, and here we are gonna pass our event and the state. So order tracking event and order tracking state. Cool. Now instead of importing these, I'm going to use the part, and we are going to part the events.dart and the states.dart. And inside the event.dart also, we are going to add part of bloc.dart. Cool. And inside the states, same thing, it will be a part of the bloc.dart. So error will be gone, and these are included. So now we are going to add our constructor for the block. Here inside, we are going to pass our initial state of the order tracking. Cool. So our block is defined as well. Now what we can do is we can initialize it inside our dependencies. So inside the utils, let me create a dependencies.dart file. And right over here, let's create a method for initialize dependencies. So first we'll initialize our getIt instance, and that will be SL. Let's import the getIt library. Then we will create our method future void initialize dependencies, and now we are going to register our block as singleton, and here I'm going to call our block name is the order tracking block, and that will be assigned right over here. So now it is initialized as well. Now we have to call this initialize dependencies inside our main.dart file, inside our agent and user entry point files. So let's first add it inside the user, and right over here inside the main method, let's initialize the dependencies. Let me add await. Cool. And now what will happen is we have initialized our dependency. It will go to the order tracking screen, and here we can call and use our block. So final block is equals to, now we can use our SL from the dependencies.dart file, and here we can assign the type of order tracking block, and that's how we can assign our block and use it inside our screen. Now we have to add an event here, so block.add event and order tracking, fetch current location. Let me name it as event as well. Fetch current location event will be called. Cool. So this fetch current location event will be called. Now we have to also wrap this Google Maps with our block builder. So what we have to do is, I'm just gonna pass a sized box if it is current location is null, and all of this logic I'm going to pass inside our block builder. Now this block builder will be called whenever the location is updated or the location is fetched. So all of that order tracking stuff will happen inside our model. So here I'm going to pass our block as our block, and inside the builder we're going to pass the context and the state, and we will return our Google Map or the sized box. Nice. Let's add const. There we go. So basically, if the current location is not equals to null, then now even we can remove this current location. So now we don't even have the current location. So what we can do is we can call, so here basically if I go over to the states, we will have a right now state for fetching the location or order tracking current. So I'll just create a state for location updated state, right? And current location fetching state, that's right. Now if the state is location updated state, only then we will show the Google Map. So over here now inside this location updated state, what we will have is we will need the lat long. So basically the current location that we were having, I'll just name it as location, and final location data location. Let's create our named constructor, and let's use the state.location to access our location right over here. So you can see that our Google Maps will have the location of the location updated state, and if it is fetching state, it will be just a sized box. Now all we have to do is inside our block, we are not initializing our event, right? So basically I have to initialize this on, and here we can initialize our event. So let's go to the events.dart. We only have one event for the fetch current location. So on fetch current location, and we have to create a method that will be called whenever the event is called from the UI. So this will be the method that will be called the fetch current location event. Now it's gonna emit the state for the fetching state. Make sense? Cool. Here first let's initialize our location. So I can create a field on the top for the location. So basically we are using the location package to get the location, and now we can simply call location.getLocation. It's gonna be a wait, and we will get our so we will get our location data from here, and that location data I can pass to the location update state. So basically whenever the fetch current location event will be called, we are gonna emit the updating state, we are gonna fetch the location, and then we will simply emit the state for the location updated state. Now to make it more safe, what we can do is we can also add a error state basically. So here, like we have the current location fetching state, I can even have a error state. So unable to fetch current location state, location error state. Now if we have any error in this particular line of the get location, we can use the, so let's use that, and so let's try this. If there's a catch, then we can emit basically our unable to fetch current location state, right? And the block builder will be called with the state as location updated, and we will have our location latitude and longitude, and that will be reflected inside our screen. Cool. Now let me just stop the app and run it once again to let's see that if the Google Maps is working fine or not. Alright, so you can see that as soon as the app is opened, it is asking me for my current location access. I can click on allow while using the app, and there we go. Once I got the location, the Google Maps I am able to see inside the application, because we have added our API keys and all inside the Android and iOS. Let me hot restart the app once again. Now it's not going to ask me for the location. I can see the location badge on the top left, and the Google Maps is available. Nice. So our first step of the process of adding the Google Maps is done. Now let's focus on our Figma screen further. So inside our Figma, now what do we have further? Let's create the design for this bottom section first, and let's show the order details. Let's create a variable that final is agent, and let's create a bool, and by default we can make this as false. All right. Perfect. Now we will be focusing on the design part. Now after this block builder, what we have to do is we have to create a section here, and so let's create a container. Let's hot reload, and there we go. So our back section, we have our map, and in the above 50% of the screen I just added this container, and let's make this as 2.2 or 2.4. all right, this makes sense. Now what we can do is we can simply show up the details here. So inside the container, I am going to create the child, and let's create a column children. Now we will create some components here. So the first component will be to the user details widget, and this is basically gonna take the user, and we can pass it from our widget dot order dot user. And if it is an agent, so widget dot is agent, then we are going to pass user, otherwise we are going to pass the agent. Cool. And basically user details widget. Now inside the components, I'm going to create this user details widget. Now let's import the widget. There we go. Everything is solved. And after that, we will have our order details section. So order details section, and after that we will have our product details widget. So that's it, the first part, the second part, and the third part. Okay, so the order details section, let's create that component as well. Here below that, sized box of height 28, and then we will have our order details section. So right now it's finding agent nearby. So if the user is not assigned, that means that the agent is not assigned for the user. So this is right now the user screen. Right now the estimated time is TBA and the status is not appearing. Once the agent is assigned, the automatically status we have to change. So the color will change and the estimated time will be updated as well for the user. Cool. If I run this app as a agent, basically what will happen is this: the agent.dart, if we run, then the agent status screen it will navigate to, and basically the order that will be waiting for the agent status screen, the agent can accept that order. So now I think the order tracking screen is done for the sending the order. Now let's create the interface of our agent status screen, and let's then move on with the logical part and the backend part as well. So inside the agent status screen, we have nothing. So currently we have a scaffold. What I want to show is inside the scaffold, we will have a body, and let's add a app bar. Okay, sorry. Let's add a app bar and app bar here, the title, and let's add a row. And basically the app bar background color will be of our primary color, and inside the row we will make this row. We can add basically to showcase that finding orders nearby, so the agent will see that, and then a loading animation. And inside the body we will create a list view of builder, list view dot builder, and we will have our item count, current orders dot length, or available orders dot length. This list we will make, and item builder, let's make that context and index the builder will take, and it's gonna return a list tile basically, and this list tile will look a little bit like this detail. So we forgot to add that inside the below of the order tracking screen. Let's continue with that first. All right, so that's it. The design of this bottom is added as well. The details of the product the user can see. Good. Now let's work on the agent status screen. Inside the agent status screen, somewhat same details. Let's show that. So I'm just gonna copy the list style that we added inside the product details, and just gonna copy that, and I'm gonna paste this right over here. I will simply assign final product is equals to available orders index. Cool. Now let's create a list for now of the available orders. So list of order model, all right. Now the available orders index dot product, that's what we're gonna show. Inside the constants we already have our one order, that we have. Let's do one thing, and I'm just gonna pass multiple orders right here of that same particular order. List dot generate also we can use, and so the user will only be able to see this particular screen, nothing else. Let's switch it off and let's restart the app as a agent. Alright, so the app is loading and we can see that it is finding orders nearby for the agent. And basically here we will showcase the order details. Right, so right now it's coming as white. Let's change that. So I'm just gonna format the code a bit. Right, so basically this screen will integrate the WebSockets, and in real time the agent will be able to see all of the orders that are available by the user. So the user will wait for the agent, and in this particular screen the agent will be able to see all of the orders that are lined up in a queue, and basically he can accept it, and then the order tracking screen will start, the order tracking progress will start. So on clicking accept, we are going to navigate to the, so navigator dot push material page route context and order tracking screen. Now it's going to take order. So here we can pass our order. So basically we have our available orders index. I can just pass that. So yep, available order index. We are getting this error that the order tracking block is not registered. And the reason this is happening, because if you go to the agent.dart, we are not initializing our getted dependencies like we are doing inside the users. So I'm just going to copy this main and put it inside here and initialize dependency. Let's import that. Now we can hot restart as the agent application. I can click on accept and there we go. Now, right now what's happening is it's basically navigating us to the user screen, and the reason this is happening because inside the agent status screen we have to pass is agent as true. So let me just go back from this particular screen. I can just go back. Let's hot reload. I can click on accept and there we go. So the agent is basically able to see the user details. He can see the product details, and we have to update the status as well. So what will happen inside the order tracking screen, that we are fetching the current location. What we have to do is we have to create our own order. So final order, or let's create it as a order model as order, and it's gonna be a late type. And inside the init state, we will get our widget dot order. Now, if it is agent, then basically we will set the order status dot order status type. Let's go inside order status. We will have our order status type and duration. And this will be order status type dot and picking order will be the new updated status of this order. Now the widget dot order, wherever we are using, we will just change it to order. All right, so let's hot restart the app now. The agent can accept any order, and now the order is picking. So the agent, whenever the order is picked by the agent, he can click this button, picked, and then we have to update the order again. So the order status will be updated to the on the way or in transact, right? So let's write up that logic. Now we have block, right? So instead of creating our order model right over here, what we will do is inside our block, we will assign our order. Okay, so let's create another block. This block we'll only use for our location updating, right? Yeah, let's make it as a order tracking for the location, and order block will have a event. So let's rename it to order event. Update order status event. So that's what event we will make. For the states part, we'll talk about that, but inside the blocks, let's rename this to order block. We will have our order event, and let's rename this to the order state as well. Now this order block I will just use. Now this initial state also, let's first quickly rename that to the order initial state, and the event that we have is the update order status event. So I'm just going to use that, and let's create our method down here, and I'll first remove this. So create method, there we go. So whenever the event we have to update of the order status, we won't be using this particular thing, the order status type, and updating like that. Basically, if it is agent, we'll have our another block. So I'll just rename this as order tracking block, and then I'll create a order block, right? So order block, and let's import that as well. So the order block, all right, so inside here we have to create our order. So I'm just going to remove the location, and order model order, there we go. And basically we can assign it to our widget dot order. So once this is assigned, now if it is an agent, then what we will do is we will simply go to the order block dot add event update order status event, and it's gonna take our the order status type dot, and here we will make it as picking order. Now let's add our order status type as well. So right over here, final order status type, and let's add it inside the constructor and import it as well. Cool. So inside our order block, or order tracking screen, we have a few errors. Let's fix that. Okay, so inside our order states, first let's remove all of these additional states, and yeah, so now this will be updated, and here we are getting an error. So what I'll do is we'll not pass anything now because we have already created a block. We are not gonna pass anything right over here. Now on calling this update order status event, basically we will emit the state updating order status state, order status updated state, and between there we will add our logic to update our order. So we already have our order assigned. We are just gonna update the order status type as event.order status type. Cool. Now these states I'm going to add inside our states.dart. So class extends order state. Cool. So our states are added. Also inside the dependencies.dart, we have to initialize our block for order block as well. So I'm just gonna import that and add that line as well. Let's hot restart and check if everything works or not. So I can click on accept, and basically the status is actually not updating. And the reason for that is if I hot reload now, you can see that the status gets updated. So the widget is not rebuilding actually. What we have to do is we have to update the order details section whenever we are updating our order block. So I can wrap this with a builder. I can rename it to the block builder. For the block, I can pass our order block, and for the context and state, it will tick. So wrapping the order detail section with the block builder. Now if I hot restart and again accept the order status will be updated perfectly. Now what we have to do, on clicking the picked button, we have to update the status to the next in line status, right? So to achieve that, let's go to the order details section, and here inside that we have our elevated button where we have our button text, and here the on pressed has to be implemented. All right. So basically what we have to do is we can use our block. So order block SL we have to import, that is from the dependency injection, that object. And now we can call our update order status event, and now we can easily get, so now we have to get the next event, right? So order status dot, and here I have to create a method for get next status method. Basically what this method will do is whatever the next status type would be, it will return that. So let's create that. It will return order status type, right? And it can be nullable. And let's get next status. Basically we'll create our switch case here. So let me just copy this and paste it right over here. Now if it is not assigned, we will return our order status of picking order, and like that we will do. If it is picking order, we will return in transact. If it is in transact, we will return delivered. And if it is delivered, we will return null. Right. So now what we can do, we can get the next status. Final next status is equals to, and if next status not equals to null, then just pass the next status right over here. If I hot reload and if I click on picked, you can see that the status gets updated. But since our condition is wrong right now, we have to also make these as red as well. If I make it deliver will be updated, and it is right over here, and the button will not appear because the order is delivered. Make sense? Now what we have to do
so we have to check where we are using the primary color, right, over here. So we have our order status widget. So is current status same order? This condition has to be updated. So we have to check the current, if the current order status is after the order status, or we can also say that the order status of this is before the current order status. So what we'll do, order status dot is before, and we'll pass a order status type. Right, now let's create this method as well, and it will basically return a boolean. So boolean is before, and it will take a order status type. Order status type, and yeah, or the current order status type makes more sense. And we have to check if the order status type, so the order status type dot index, so we can utilize the index here, is before the current order status type dot index, and we can return this. Let's hot reload, and there we go. And we can also use perfect. So let's hot restart and try it again. I can accept the order, I can make it picked. Now I can make it deliver, and the order is delivered. Cool. So what else we have to do is, you can see that once the order is on the way, the picked button can be disappeared, right? So the condition that we have, if it is agent, is true. If it is not equals to null, that is also true. And here I will add, and we are gonna just make this line, is current order, or is order before current order. We're gonna update this boolean as well. Let's just paste it here, let's paste it here, and let's paste it here. Cool, so let's hot restart and see that from the agent perspective. He can accept the order, he can make it picked, he can make it on the way, so deliver, and the order will be delivered. Nice. So our UI part is done. As you guys can see, we have created our UI screen for our agent as well as user, tracking both the main logic. Now all we have to do is integrate our backend so that some real orders we can see, instead of using the dummy order that we already created. So our front end work is done, and here also you can see that inside our Notion I have already created a list of steps, and the 7th step, the designing the UI screen for both the user and the agent, is done. What next we have to do is work on our backend and create our WebSocket so that it can be integrated in real time, and then the agent will be able to see some real orders coming from the user. Make sense? So this is it for this particular video. What I'm planning is to create multiple videos, and in the next one we are going to talk about integrating and creating our Python backend. So in the next video we'll talk about how to make our Python backend and WebSocket to basically show the user and the agent the real-time location and the real-time update status as well. So the backend we'll make in the next video, and also we'll integrate that backend with our Flutter application. That's it for this particular video. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like it if video was informative, and make sure to subscribe my channel so that you don't miss the further part of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.